And now why we are here, to rekindle and sustain, illuminate and proclaim the flame, the light of peace, of peace, light of peace, light of peace, light of peace, light of peace, to shine and amplify the light of peace. Circle round, gather near, friends and strangers, loved ones dear, to remember why we are here, to rekindle and sustain, illuminate and proclaim the flame, the light of joy, 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 to shine and amplify the light of joy, and the light of love, light of love, light of love, light of love, to shine and amplify the light of love. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to your Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist congregation. My name is Susanne Maziarz. I'm here in our sanctuary, sitting beside this beautiful 90-year-old Heinzmann grand piano made here in Toronto, and framed by the circle of chairs that the Spirit Choir rehearsed in on Monday night. I have your announcements for the coming week. This week's gathering music that you just heard was the song Light of Love, written by Reverend Wendy Luella Perkins last year, performed by musicians from the Vancouver congregation and me subbing in on the alto line. Reverend Wendy Luella is a UU community minister in Kingston, currently the chaplain at Queen's University. She's been leading soulful singing circles for decades. They are song circles of short songs that she writes, and all are welcome to sing along and harmonize. Her song, We Give Thanks, is in our Teal hymnal, Singing the Journey. And we've also sang her song, Every Night a Child is Born is a Holy Night, at our Christmas Eve services. The song Light of Love was the result of a commission to write a congregational song for the CUC National Conference last year, and we'll be singing it together as our opening song in our service today. Ongoing at Neighborhood, as I mentioned, Monday nights, our Spirit Choir is now rehearsing in a hybrid format, both in person in our sanctuary and on Zoom. If you're interested in singing with the Spirit Choir, you can contact me, music@nuuc.ca. Tuesday mornings, our minister, Reverend Wayne, offers a coffee time, a time for casual chat with the minister. All are welcome. That's on Zoom from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. every Tuesday. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, we help to supply sandwiches for Club Sandwich to help feed local hungry people. So if you're able to make some sandwiches, individually wrap, label what's in them, and drop them off at MCC, they deliver to local charities. Wednesday evening, our minister, Reverend Wayne, offers a meditation from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m., and that is over Zoom. Come in and rejoice. Next week, We will have our first hybrid service of 2022. Hope to see you here filling those chairs behind me in the sanctuary. Following that, our next in-person will be March 27th, and from then on we plan to offer weekly hybrid multi-platform services. Let us welcome each other into our space. We need you, and we need each other. Calling all greeters. Are you available Sunday morning to welcome members and friends to our gathering? We need some help. If you can help out, contact Luann, our secretary, at shiplu@gmail.com. Welcome home. It's where you belong. In the neighborhood galleries, currently ongoing show of our ministers' mindful journeys in photos and prose. All are welcome. They line the upstairs balcony. I can kind of show you a little bit. You can see way up there at the top a little bit of the show. You're welcome to drop into our building anytime to see our art show. Thank you, Lauren, our curator. This week's breakout room question. Love manifests in various ways in different world religions. Which ways discussed today resonates most for you? We hope you will be willing to share after service in the breakout rooms on this question. And next Sunday, for our first hybrid service of 2022, the theme will be Serving with Satisfaction. Our speaker will be our minister, Reverend Wayne Walder. Our service weaver is Peter Marmarick, and music will be provided by Susanne and friends.
Good morning, beautiful humans and any non-human animal companions. Mine is right here, and any of those who are close by you. And happy International Women's Day for all of those in the Zoom room today who are called to celebrate gender equality this Tuesday and your divine woman within, independent of your body shell. Welcome to our Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist Congregation service. My name is Debb Bertazzon, and I'll be your virtual service weaver this morning. Likely for the last time from my home. Fingers crossed. This service is being recorded for the public, both on YouTube and on our website. Not to worry though, joys and concerns will be edited out. If you have any other privacy concerns, I invite you to be true to yourself. You can turn off your camera so that you're not seen, or you might want to even rename yourself. Allow yourself to feel safe and comfortable in this gathering. Now we have nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. So let's bring our hearts and our minds and our spirits together as one, as we share energy and love and give gratitude for being with each other. This is our threshold moment. Let's enter into sacred space together. Our service begins now. As we light our chalice, you're encouraged to somehow light your own personal chalice. It could be a candle like I have in my hand, or a gesture. But either way, please join Susanne as we sing.
We light this chalice to remember, to light the fire within our own hearts.
So hey, Susanne.
Hey, Deb.
So what's on the docket for our prelude today?
Well, I thought I'd like to celebrate International Women's Day with the prelude this morning. No, 2 years ago, while we were still in Hiawatha, and I can actually hear the sounds of Hiawatha in this recording, I recorded the song What Happens When a Woman by the women's trio Artemisia. And this song celebrates and questions what difference it would make, what difference does it make, and would it make to have females in more roles of power. In the video, I celebrate a few different women leaders. And just to note, it is a bit out of date. RBG is there, and she has passed on since I made the video. And the Chancellor of Germany is now a man, not a woman anymore. But regardless, I hope you enjoy What Happens When a Woman by Artemisia. What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she wears the crown? What happens when she rules her own body? What happens when she sets the beat? What happens when she bows to nobody? What happens when she stands on her own 2 feet? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she wears the crown? Oh, we rise above. Oh, we lead with love. Oh, we have won. We are one. We've just begun. Whoa, we rise above. Oh, we lead with love. Oh, we have won. We are one. We just begun. What happens when a woman? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't? What happens when a woman? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman? What happens? What happens? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens? What happens? What happens when she wears the crown?
Wow. Thank you for that, Susanne. According to the Native Women's Association of Canada, Aboriginal women represent and maintain cultures rich in knowledge, history, skills, and environmental stewardship. Their close relationship and dependence on the land and environment comes from their understanding that their life and livelihood is dependent upon the nurturing and caring of both of those. Today, most of us are in our homes for this Zoom service. Let us remember that many of these homes are on the traditional land and territories of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and the Haudenosaunee nations. I offer my gratitude to all of our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples for their teachings about the earth, relations, and of the community. And today I especially offer my gratitude for those Indigenous women who serve their communities both out of love for their land and for their people. And now allow me to acknowledge some of the wonderful people who lovingly care for you as Unitarian Universalists at Neighborhood. Our minister is the Reverend Wayne Walder, and he's off today. Our musical director is Susanne Maziarz, and Zee Getchell facilitates our Sunday Child and Caregiver program. We also have Mike Kosowski working his magic behind that curtain, doing the Zoom web hosts duties. Thank you to all of them. Finally, we also have a wonderful guest speaker today, Brian Carwana, who will be offering the message today entitled Life and the World's Religions. He'll be taking us on a journey through some of the world's oldest and most popular religions to see what they have to say about that elusive, powerful, mesmerizing force called love. More about Brian later. By now, most of us have the hang of Zoom etiquette. However, if you have any tech questions or concerns during this service, you can send a direct chat message to either Zee or to Peter, and they'll happily support you. If you're visiting us for the first time, or if you're relatively new, we welcome you, and we invite you and even encourage you to stay after service. You can either go to a breakout room to discuss the question that was posted earlier, or stay in the main space with our Director of Music, Susanne, who you've already met, and she'll be available to answer questions about who we are and what we do. For starters, our mission here at Neighborhood is to empower spiritual growth and shared action for the care of the world. Our theme for the month of March is Lessons and Learning. And today we will be learning about and through our topic, and you've guessed it, it's love and the world's religions. Love. And you see. When Wayne led us in meditation last week, I closed my eye. I was imagining the mothers who were leaving Ukraine with their children as their loved ones, mostly men, but also women, stayed behind to fight as the Russian troops were invading. I imagined what all of these people must have been feeling. I felt, or at least I imagined, their pain and their fear. I felt like crying. I went into my head before my heart. How could I pray? What kind of energy could I try to send them? It felt unrealistic to send them calm or even to pray for peace at that point. For some reason, and I wasn't sure why, but I just kept seeing the images of these people in my mind's eye and began repeating, "You are loved. You are loved." My heart had kicked in at that point. And I felt that that actually could help. It wasn't money. I couldn't fight alongside them or physically embrace them. I couldn't send artillery. I couldn't even march that day in solidarity downtown. Rumi said, "Love is the bridge between you and everything." And in that moment, when I was meditating, it just felt like, if these siblings of ours only knew how many people around the world were thinking about them and had their backs, even if just by loving them, people of all different faiths, different nationalities, different walks of life, all sending love, I was somehow certain that that would be useful. And then an afterthought. I also feel able and willing to send love to those folks in Russia who are protesting. Can I love the Russian soldiers who are just doing their job? What about Putin himself? Food for thought. Here at Neighborhood, we draw wisdom from many sources. Today, I'd like to share a quote from Donna Goddard, author of The Love of Being Loved. And here's what she says. To understand the love of being loving, radically changes us. People in and of themselves cannot give us happiness. Activities in and of themselves cannot give us happiness. One becomes a loving presence, a center for divine grace. And now let's take a moment to be a loving presence for each other. We are connected and we feel love even though physically apart. So let's greet each other. Switch to gallery view, unmute your device, and offer a greeting to those around you. We'll sound a chime to end.
Hi, Terry.
Good morning.
Lynn.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Bill.
Hello, Chris.
Hi,
Bill.
Good
morning.
Deb.
Doug.
Chris.
Hi, Doug.
Pat.
Hey, Lauren. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Kim.
Morning. Hi, Bill. Morning.
Steve.
Katha.
Gwen.
Peter.
Hi, Andy.
Hi,
Veronica. Hi.
Hi, Gordon.
Hey, Gordon. Michelle.
Hi,
Ellie.
Lauren.
Natalie.
Brian.
Hi, Doug.
Susan, Emily.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Mike.
Morning, Julie.
Hi, Janet. Hi, Dolly.
Veronica.
Morning.
Now, I invite you to join in reading our opening words, which will appear on your screen. Let us cast the circle of a sacred space here. Let us cast the circle of a cherished space here. A space of safety, a place of forgiveness, a place of love. If we want the world to change, we must craft in our space and in ourselves the seeds that grow a different kind of life. A life of graciousness, of creative intelligence, a place of life and spirit for ourselves and our families.
Okay, good morning all. I'm going to just switch to gallery view so I can see all your faces. And in that spirit of casting a circle, I would like to begin our service singing together what you heard in the gathering music, Light of Love. We've done it here at Neighborhood before, so I'm hoping I can just sing it through with you 3 times. First time through, maybe it'll just be a little reminder of the tune, but hopefully you'll join me the second and third times through. If you need help remembering the lyrics, they're posted in the slideshow. And I'm going to take advantage of having those beautiful quilts there behind me as well. Okay, so we're here. And circle round, gather near, friends and strangers, loved ones dear, to remember why we are here. To rekindle and sustain, illuminate and proclaim the flame, the light of love. Light of love, light of love, light of love, light of love, to shine and amplify the light of love. Circle round, gather near, friends and strangers, loved ones dear, to remember why we are here. To rekindle and sustain, illuminate and proclaim the flame, the light of love. Light of love, light of love, light of love, light of love, to shine and amplify the light of love. Circle round, gather near, friends and and strangers, loved ones dear, to remember why we are here. To rekindle and sustain, illuminate and proclaim the flame, the light of love. Light of love, light of love, light of love, light of love, to shine and amplify the light of love, the light of love, light of love, light of love, light of love, to shine and amplify the light of love. And now I invite to gather and circle round and gather near to all the young folks and those young at heart, because Zee has a story for us.
Thanks for that, Susanne. Good morning, everyone. Well, I want to start today by offering a special welcome to Brian Carwana, who's speaking here today. Thank you for joining us. And our topic this morning is love. Love across the world's religions. So I thought we'd look at ours this morning. How do we, as UUs, express love? I think that we can find ways to express love through each of our 8 principles. When we believe that everyone is important, that each and every person is important, we're saying that whoever you are is valid and deserves love. I certainly know that when someone tells me I'm important, I feel loved. And when we treat people fairly and with kindness, it is a gentle expression of love, of showing that we are all equally in need of love and that we're willing to share it together. When we accept people for who they are and keep on learning together, we learn new things and can grow in all sorts of ways, even finding new ways to love that we'd never thought of before. When we let people be free to search for what is right and true in their life, we are showing love to their difference in personality. And when we do that, we can come together and find a new understanding of each other. When we give everybody a vote about things that concern them, we're telling people that their voice matters, that their experience is important and should be considered when decisions are being made that involve everybody. And I think that's a pretty loving thing. When we work for a peaceful, fair, and free world, we're trying to make sure that everyone feels loved and supported as much as possible, no matter who they are or where they came from. When we care for our planet Earth, the home that we share with all living things, we're not only showing love to our world, but to ourselves, to each other, and to everything that's alive, whether now or in the future, by making sure that we always have a home here. And when we work together to stop racism and take down barriers to make all people fully included, we're showing that not only does everybody deserve love, but that we're willing to make sure that everybody has that chance to feel loved. Or that's what I think anyway. That's how I see love through our UU lens, as something that we use to try and make the world a stronger and better place. And I very much look forward to what Brian has to say on how other religions see and express love, so that I can learn from them as well. So until next time, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Zach. Zee. Okay, joys and concerns. Well, this is a special time in our service when we invite you to share a joy or concern in your life. Finally, we light this last candle for all the joys and concerns, equally important, although not spoken aloud, but still have a voice in our hearts. Next, please join the choir in singing the Peace Prayer Mandela. What a beautiful way to move into our meditation. The chakra system originated in India between 1500 and 500 BC in the oldest text called the Vedas in early Hinduism. It's also drawn upon in many, or in some, Buddhist and other practices. Usually we attempt to move energy through our 7 chakras, starting with the root chakra near the bottom of our spine, all the way up to our crown chakra at the top of our head. For today's meditation, I'd like us to focus on the Anahata, or heart chakra, which helps us shift our mindset to the energy of love. So let's begin by finding a comfortable position. And together, let's take 3 deep breaths, sounding on the slow exhale, like this. Ah. 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 And if you're comfortable doing so, you may want to close your eyes or soften your gaze. Your heart chakra is located at the center of your chest, around the heart space, and it's associated with love and relationships. Now, imagine this space in your body radiating a powerful green light as you listen to my words. I'd also encourage you to repeat each line that I say. You may want to say it to yourself if you prefer, or say it out loud. I am fully open to giving and receiving love. I deeply and completely love and accept myself. I am worthy of the purest love. I direct love and light towards myself and others. I am united with all beings. I release and let go of all resentment. I forgive myself for my mistakes and I grow from them. There is an infinite supply of love. It is safe for me to love and be loved. Now let's take one deep sounding breath as we come back slowly. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for today. Brian Carwana is the Executive Director of the Encounter World Religions Center, which promotes religious literacy and fosters engagement with people, places, practices, and philosophies of religious traditions, especially during the Immersive Discovery Week program, which runs every July. Brian has spent 20 years studying world religions. He has his PhD from the University of Toronto and blogs about his obsession with religions at his site, religionsgeek.com. Welcome, Brian. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks to you. Thanks to everyone for this invitation to be with you this morning. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the invitation. Years ago, my son and I read this book called The Happiness Hypothesis. It was written by a famous moral psychologist named Jonathan Haidt. Some of you might have heard of him. And in the book, he looks at the wisdom of the ages, the religions, classical philosophy. He also looks at modern things like psychology and cognitive science to see if together you can cobble something together about what is it that makes us happy. And so I thought today we might do something similar by looking at what the world's religions have had to say about love. In considering love in the world's religions, I'm really going to focus on what they've done well rather than where they've gone astray. And there's too many religions, so we'll focus on 4. We'll look at Hinduism and Buddhism from India, and then Islam and Judaism from the Abrahamic religions. I should prepare you. There's no aha at the end. I don't have the singular answer to this perennial question, but I hope that what we can do is pick up pieces here and there, glimmers that might be fodder for further reflection, if not for clean conclusions. Let us begin with Hinduism, which might be the oldest thriving tradition on the planet today. The ultimate goal in Hinduism is to achieve spiritual liberation called moksha. There are different yogas or paths for achieving this. One main yoga or path to God is called Jnana Yoga, which means knowledge. This is a path of studying and learning, which is a path that might resonate, I think, for many Unitarians. Another is Karma Yoga, which means the path of action. One can do good works and fulfill one's responsibilities, something else that I think many Unitarians might resonate with. But around 2,000 years ago, a book was written called the Bhagavad Gita, and it suggested that the best yoga of all, without diminishing the others, was Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti means passionate love for God, ardent devotion. Hindu saints or poets would go into villages chanting hymns of love to divinity, however named or understood. And these love poems created like a revival, like great followings that really changed the religious landscape of India. And this is one of the first lessons from the religions, is that love transforms. Belonging to a religion, I have heard said, is often akin to falling in love. One falls in love with Jesus, or in this case, Krishna. For the past 1,500 years, Bhakti has thus been the most popular path because of its transformative powers, captured, I think, by some very popular British philosophers we've all heard of, who taught us that love is all you need. But love is not just about transformation. It is also in some ways a garden that must be cultivated and maintained. In the Bhakti path, this is done through daily devotions called darshan. Darshan comes from the Sanskrit word that means to see, and here it means to see and be seen by the deities. Every summer, I run a Discovery Week, a one-week immersion course where we explore 11 religions through classes and about 20 site visits. During the week, on the Monday, we actually visit 3 Hindu temples that are quite diverse from one another, and yet at all of them, darshan is the primary activity going on. People come to see the deities. As they walk in, they often bow, or they touch their head and touch the floor where the feet of the devotees go. Then in front of the images, they will bow or sometimes prostrate. And that's a kind of humbling oneself, right? Putting oneself lower than the object of one's love. Then they ring bells, and the bells, they seize your attention, right? For a moment, they put other things out of your mind. They get rid of to-do lists and worries. And then they commune visually with the deities and orally through prayers. And that cumulatively is the practice of darshan. One often begins one's day and ends one's day this way, by seeing the gods, by being seen, by affirming one's love for them and one's commitment to them throughout the day. Overall, then, in Hinduism, the greatest and most popular path to liberation is love, an ardent love for God, but a love that also must be reinforced through regular practices of seeing and being seen. Hinduism's offspring, Buddhism, is a bit different. In Buddhism, there's really no God. In some branches of Buddhism, the Buddhas become a bit godlike, but in others, they really don't. Without gods as the focus of devotion, to where does one direct one's love? Well, surprisingly, first and foremost, to oneself. There's an understanding that kindness to oneself is sort of the basis for loving others. Love does not emanate from self-loathing. And so one of the key practices the Buddha taught on this front is meditation. Meditation, as we've just done, is partly a self-care practice. The quieting of the mind gives us a kind of calm respite. It's restorative. It even quiets the negative voices in your head, right? Those voices we all have that say, I'm not good enough, I didn't do that right, why can't I be better? In meditation, you watch how these thoughts come and go, and in seeing how they come and go, they lose some of their hold on us. But meditation is more than self-care. It also teaches attentiveness. We exercise the muscle of watching our breath, of being in the moment. And the intent is that we'll carry that attentiveness to all our daily interactions so that we're fully present as we see our family, our colleagues, or the store clerk. In short, that we see them. It's darshan, if you will, by another name. And like Hinduism, there's also the recognition that love is a giving of oneself. The ultimate example of this in Buddhism are in some scriptures called the Jataka tales. These are stories of the Buddha's former lives, where he was sometimes a person and sometimes an animal, but always doing the loving thing. One of these stories that I've always liked is the story of the elephant. There's some travelers in a desert, and they lose their way, they run out of their water and their food, and they run out of energy, and they collapse in the sand, and they're going to die, and they know it. And an elephant comes across the desert, and the elephant is the Buddha, and he sees them and sees their haggard condition and asks what's wrong. And they explain what's happened, and he said, you're in luck. Do you see over there, there's that cliff? I happen to know that if you just walk around the bottom of that cliff, you will see there the carcass of an elephant. You can eat the flesh of that animal. It will give you the strength you need and the sustenance to be able to get out. And so they thank him, they get up, they stagger off towards the bottom of the cliff. And as they do, he walks to the top of the cliff and jumps off. And when they see him, they're shocked. And some of them are aghast and say, we can't eat him. He was our friend. And others say, we have to. He sacrificed his life for us. And so from his death, they get life. In eating him, in eating of his flesh, they are saved. And so we see the similarities with Hinduism, that love requires attentiveness to others, here learned through meditation, and that this love requires practices, daily reminders, or investments, and that love is a sacrifice of sorts, that we give ourselves for the benefit of others, as all parents know. In Judaism, love again begins with the love of God and obedience to God. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your might, it says in a key passage recited during daily prayers. That love is expressed through regular attendance to the mitzvot, which is commandments. Jewish law permeates daily activities. The Orthodox wear fringes or tassels that have no practical function, but which God tells the devotees to wear because when they see them, it will remind them of all the other commandments. Other commandments tell you to put a mezuzah on a door that you touch as you go in or out to remind you of God's words. And of course, the dietary laws govern the preparation of every meal. For outsiders, this can look tedious and sometimes honestly even silly, and yet many Jews find it deeply meaningful. One calls God to mind repeatedly throughout the day while dressing and putting on the fringes, while eating and eating kosher, while going in and out of rooms, and while stopping 3 times a day to pray. Such a life can be seen as sanctified, as kind of enveloped in constant reminders and devotion to God. It's again a different system of making a Jew attentive to God throughout the day. These little things add up. During the Discovery Week I mentioned, I often take groups to meet this wonderful Orthodox Jewish cantor, a man I really love named Menashe. And Menashe's favorite saying, it's actually the byline in his email. It says, the little things are the big things. And Menashe exemplifies this. He doesn't just say hello, he grips me in this hug that like squeezes every ounce of air out of me. It's like a fierce hug. And he sees you always. And it's a little thing, but I have to tell you, it's a big thing. Judaism also had something less prevalent in the religions of India, and that's a concern with social justice. Judaism has the prophetic voice of prophets calling kings to task. Judaism therefore pays attention to what we would today call sort of systemic injustice, and its laws are meant to govern not just individual behavior, but to foster a just society. The religions of India are sometimes a little bit more focused on the individual Buddhism in particular can really look at suffering as a matter of individual psychology. That's a sweeping statement. There's a movement in Buddhism to counter this called social Buddhism. But I would say it's a problem that's been acknowledged and that Judaism is quite good at this. Social injustice is also at some level about being seen. We've had so many examples of this in the last 7, 8 years. Do some of you remember Alan Kurdi, the 9-year-old Syrian boy who washed up on the beach? And it was that event which really kind of got people paying attention to the refugee crisis, and it altered our federal election. Black Lives Matter gained so much traction through cell phones, right? Through videos so people could see what was actually happening. Here in Canada, the I Don't Know More movement, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, forcing Canadians to look at what our country has done and of the ongoing problems. And the Me Too movement, when so many women demanded to identify themselves as having suffered this way, and to say, me too, see me and hear me. The demand to matter in Black Lives Matter is a demand to not close your eyes, to not look away, to not be too busy. Instead, to see here, right now. Darshan can be inhibited by simple things: busyness, inattentiveness, distractibility, laziness, and sometimes, honestly, discomfort. Sometimes we don't want to look, but love requires seeing and being seen. Islam, too, emphasizes regular practices. Most obviously, praying 5 times a day, a requirement to stop what you're doing and then to prepare yourself for communing with God. Such preparation often involves a ritual washing, where you enter the prayer sort of purified, and then you turn and you face your spiritual center. And the first motion you do is this, which is putting all the concerns and cares and accomplishments of your day behind you so that you just focus on God. And then you prostrate, bowing again, humbling oneself, placing your loved one at some level above you or in front of you. And then the prayer starts. And the prayers in Islam are a kind of aesthetic. The Quran employs and injects beauty into the day. Its poetic rhyming lines recited to musical tones are really meant to melt the heart. The poetry you hear and that touches you are understood to be the very words of Allah who created you. The Quran, I would posit, folks, is not a mere logical text, a cool appeal to the head, but rather an emotional arrow shot at the believer's heart. Listen to the poetry as it says, Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Al-Rahman al-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, Idina Siratul Mustaqim, Siratul Ladina An'amta Allahim, Royal Madubi Allahim, Wala Dalin. Ameen. It's meant to appeal, to sway, to grip you, to make you fall in love. Every day, Islam uses what I call practices of oral sensuality in the call to prayer and the recitation of the Quran to bind the devotee's heart to Allah, to God. In the Sufi tradition, this aesthetic approach reaches its zenith with devotees reciting the name of God in alternating sessions that get louder and softer, faster and slower. As you move in a group in a circle or sometimes whirl upon your own axis, as you lose yourself in a kind of ecstasy in the love of God. It's very expressive, involving the body, the emotions, and sound. Rumi's poetry uses a language of romance to express the relationship with God. This heartful yearning in Sufism is seen by many scholars as the reason why Islam spread so well into India and Indonesia, where Hindus who were already versed in bhakti, that ardent love for God, found Sufism's poetry and passions brought one even closer into God's embrace. Love, again, can transform identity. And the Quran asks that we display love to all humankind. Many of us were left dumbfounded by the young Malala Yousafzai, who responded to what happened to her with love. Those people killed her, tried to kill her. They didn't want to see her. They wanted no one to see her. And to take an example closer to home, I don't know if any of you know of the now Toronto-based doctor Izzeldin Abu Elaish. Abu Elaish was raised in Gaza, one of the poorest, most overcrowded places on earth. Through hard work, he got a scholarship at a university in Egypt, studied medicine, became an obstetrician, and worked for many years at a hospital in Israel, delivering babies, Arab babies, Jewish babies, Muslim, etc. And he tried to become a peace advocate between the two societies. He said, in medicine, we don't care. When someone comes in, we don't ask what religion or ethnicity they are, we just help them. And despite all this advocacy, he suffered a terrible loss when his 3 daughters were killed in 2008 during the Intifada, when an Israeli bomb hit his house. He responded to the murder of his 3 daughters by writing the book, I Shall Not Hate. Abu Elaish spent his life trying to get Palestinians and Jews to see each other as he sees them, as people fully human just like themselves. Justice requires sometimes really hard work of darshan, to see the Palestinian, the Jew, to see indigenous peoples, to see that Black Lives Matter. You know many of the lessons we've talked about today from your own tradition, as Zee, I think, so well summarized. In your key sources, Unitarians write of how beauty can transform us when you speak of the beauty of the natural world and of the human spirit. You demonstrate humility in your egalitarian values, your democratic congregational practices, and even, and I find this particularly admirable, humility regarding ideological certainty. Your signature commitment to social justice, something for which I would suggest your community undoubtedly punches above its weight, reflects a recognition that love requires seeing the person in need, even when inconvenient or distressing. The great religions of the world teach us that it matters what you love, that love can be about beauty, and that such beauty can transform, but that love is also a work, a regular practice, and an investment. And if love is also a self-sacrifice, maybe a key takeaway is to find practices that train us to give of ourselves, including, most importantly, our attention. Are there little routines of darshan that we can add to our lives? Perhaps to educate ourselves on social justice issues so we can educate others, or perhaps something smaller, like the 5-minute meditation this morning to exercise attentiveness and be present. Perhaps a family night once a week, or a lunch date once a month with a spouse, a mother, a son. It might not be much, but if my friend Menashe were here, he would pull you in, hug you until you couldn't breathe, look you straight in the eyes, and remind you that the little things are the big things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brian. Really important thoughts, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. So thank you for that. And as we tap into the love we feel for this congregation and all that we receive from it, let's remember that it must have nurture and sustenance. If you contribute by pre-authorized withdrawals or in other ways, we thank you. Now, especially during these challenging times, I'd like to ask everyone to look openly into their loving hearts, moving away from fear and to ask yourself for a truthful answer to this question. What am I able and willing to financially give to neighborhood for what it needs in order for it to continue providing me with what I need? And there's no wrong answer. A link is going to show in your chat window in just a few seconds. And all you need to do is click on it, and it will take you right to our donation page. And by the way, it's perfectly acceptable to change your sharing commitment at any time. And while we give some time for you to click on that link if you so choose, let's listen to Susanne play some beautiful music for us.
Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist congregation, if you could join me in singing, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. It uses the same tune as the English folk song, The Water is Wide. Though I may speak with bravest fire, the gift to all inspire, and have not love, my words are vain, a sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I striving so, my love profess, but not be given by love within. The prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are free. By this we worship and are free.
Thanks, Susanne. And now I invite you all, my friends, to join Susanne just one more time in song as we extinguish our chalice.
Although her chalice has been darkened, we hold the fire within our own hearts.
Elizabeth Barrett Browning once said, "Whoso loves believes the impossible." Today I leave you with this blessing. Go forth believing the impossible. For those of you who do not wish to join a breakout room, thank you for joining us. Everyone who remains here will be asked to join a breakout room. Today's question to consider and discuss is, love manifests in various ways in different world religions. Which ways discussed today resonate most for you? If you're new to neighborhood, just stay in the meeting by saying later to the request to join the breakout room. Susanne will be here to talk to you and to respond to any questions you might have. Now, we typically end our service by going into gallery view and unmuting ourselves, but not so fast. Today, instead of our usual namaste, I recently learned a new way of doing this. And in honor of International Women's Day, I invite you to place your hands the opposite way. It took me a second to do that. So the opposite way, as I've just done, and then cupping your breasts, regardless of your gender, towards your heart chakra, and we will together say, Namaste. Our service is ended. Go in peace.
Namaste.
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 Namaste, everyone.